None shall pass.
What?
None shall pass.
I have no quarrel with you, good Sir Knight, but I must cross this bridge.
Then you shall die.
I command you, as King of the Britons, to stand aside.
I move for no man.
So be it. Now stand aside, worthy adversary.
'Tis but a scratch.
A scratch? Your arm's off.
No, it isn't.
Well, what's that then?
I've heard worse.
You liar!
Come on, you pansy.
Victory is mine. We thank thee, Lord, that in thy mercy.
Hello, and welcome to another Baldur's Gate 3 build video. I'll be showing some gameplay in the background here, since my opening didn't have any actual gameplay this time around. This video, I'll be going over my Paladin Cleric multiclass build. This build is about combining the utility of a cleric with the DPS output of a paladin. As always, I'll start with character creation, and then I'll go over the notable items for the build from throughout the game. So, without further ado, I'll let the gameplay play out a little bit, and then we'll get into character creation and character levels. So, starting with character race, there are 4 races that have inherent advantages for this build. Of course, none of these races' advantages are so great that they're required, but as my recommendations, they are Half-Orc, Wood Elf, Half-Wood Elf, and Githyanki. Half-Orcs have increased melee crit damage as well as a death resist passive that are both useful for this build, as this build is a frontline melee fighter. Alternatively, the Wood Elves increase mobility, and the Gith's access to Misty Step for free can be very useful for chasing down foes in battle. Now for the actual build, it is as follows. Starting at level 1, we go Cleric War Domain. War Domain clerics start with their passive, War Priest, which allows them to use their bonus action to extra attack at the cost of one of their War Priest charges, of which we start with 3. This allows us to have extra attack starting from level 1, albeit with limited uses. For our ability scores, you have some options. We definitely want 16 strength and 14 constitution. However, if you don't want to have negative dex or int, you can drop some of the constitution to add to either one of those abilities. Then, you want to either have 16 wisdom and 12 charisma, or vice versa. Because we will be a dual cleric paladin, we will have spells that scale off both casting stats depending on which spell slot we are casting from. I personally prefer to have 16 wisdom and 12 charisma, because we have more useful spells from cleric, but you can really do either. Now, for levels 2 to 6, we start leveling Paladin. At level 3, we get the most important bread and butter spell of this build, Divine Smite, as well as our fighting style for which we will be taking Great Weapon Fighting. At level 5, we get our first feat, for which we will be taking Savage Attacker. It should be noted that Savage Attacker does apply on our Smite damage rolls, making it the obvious choice for our build. At level 6, we get Extra Attack, and it is important to note that the game will try and use your War Priest Extra Attack charges before your normal Extra Attack, if you have a bonus action available. So, if you don't want to use your War Priest charges, use your bonus action first. Now, at level 7, we continue speccing back into Cleric. This nets us our Channel Divinity charges, which allows us to use Guided Strike. This lets us use our reaction to add a plus 10 to our attack roll. Continuing on with Cleric, at level 9 we get our second feat, for which we'll be taking Great Weapon Master, netting us a bonus 10 damage, as well as a bonus attack if we get a crit or a kill. Finally, at level 10, we take our 5th Cleric level, getting us an additional War Priest charge. Now, for levels 11 and 12, we have 4 options for what class we want our last 2 class levels to be. I'll explain what each option gives so that you can decide which trade-off you want to make. Firstly, if we take our last 2 levels in Cleric, we gain an additional Channel Divinity charge, the War God's Blessing skill, allowing us to use Guided Strike for our allies, and additionally, we gain 2 level 4 spell slots as well as a level 5 spell slot and access to our level 4 Cleric spells. It's worth noting that for Divine Smite, the damage caps out at 5d8, so if we Divine Smite with our level 5 spell slot, it doesn't do any additional damage compared to a level 4 spell slot. Our next option is to put our last 2 levels in Paladin. This gives us a level 4 spell slot and 2 new passives, Word of Protection and Relentless Avenger. Word of Protection allows us to add our Charisma modifier to our and any nearby allies' saving throws. Relentless Avenger gives us an additional 4.5 meters of movement after taking an opportunity attack. Because Aura of Protection is the main benefit of this option, I'd only recommend it if you opted to have 16 or higher Charisma for your ability scores. Next up, we could take 2 points in Wizard and go either the Abjuration or Divination School. Abjuration gives us some flat damage reduction every time we cast an Abjuration spell, such as Shield of Faith or Sanctuary. Alternatively, the Divination School gives us 2 Portent die per long rest to reroll enemy or allied dice with. Wizard gives us the same spell slots as Cleric, but it also allows us to use the ability Spell Scribing to learn any spell we have a scroll for up to spell level 5 to place in our Wizard spell slots. Our final option is to put 2 levels in Fighter, netting us Action Surge and another fighting style, for which you would most likely want to take Defense. And those are your final level options. Personally, I find Cleric or Wizard to be the best options, but it's really up to you to decide which one you want. Now that we're finished with the levels, I'll be moving on to the items. This is your spoiler warning, so if you don't want to potentially get spoiled about item locations or events that occur later in the game, stop watching now, or avoid the sections on acts you have yet to complete. So, to show off the items, I figured the best place for this build was the resident place of worship in Baldur's Gate, Stormshore Tabernacle. Of course, the locals were not taking so kindly to my accommodation of their building, but I think after our nice conversation, they found me to be quite convincing. So convincing, in fact, that they agreed to help me out in showing off the items. So, for Act 1, starting with the weapons, Baylor Aluve. I didn't say that correctly. Yes, I did. You actually just heard me incorrectly. Alternatively, we can use Sorrow for the extra reach. For our ranged weapon, Titan String Bow is about the only bow we can really use since our dex is so low. For Helms, the Haste Helm will serve you well for quite some time, all the way up through Act 2. Similarly, the Adamantine Splint Mail will be good throughout the remainder of Act 1 and all of Act 2. The 2 gauntlet options we have are the Gloves of Heroism, which give us some extra HP, or we can use the Gloves of Growling Underdog for help when fighting many enemies. For boots, our classic movement boot options, the Boots of Speed, or the Disintegrating Nightwalkers are best. The ring options are the Caustic Band for added damage, Crusher's Ring for increased mobility, or the Ring of Protection for increased defensive stats. And finally, for amulets, we can't go wrong with the Amulet of Misty Step. Before moving on to Act 2, there are only 2 items from the Mountain Pass worth mentioning, these being the Strange Conduit Ring, and, if you're a Githyanki, the Soulbreaker Greatsword. Now, moving on to Act 2, the main weapon you want to acquire as soon as possible is the Halberd of Vigilance. This weapon is arguably one of the best weapons in the entire game for this build, including those in Act 3. The Darkfire Shortbow gives us some bonus resistances, as well as the ability to cast the spell Haste. The Helmet of Arcane Acuity gives us a way to get nearly guaranteed spell casts of spells like Hold Person or Command off, as long as we stack it before casting. Reaper's Embrace, which we acquire at the end of the act, can be a good alternative to the Adamantine Splint Mail. Cloak of Protection gives us some added defenses. The Dark Justiciar Gauntlets, or Blood Helldust Gauntlets, give us some added damage. The Gloves of the Automaton give us a way to gain advantage on our attacks once per long rest. And Janel's Gloves, which can be situationally good in fights where its designated CC are prevalent, are also decent. For boots, the Evasive Shoes give us even more AC. For our rings, Shadow Cloaked Ring gives us some added damage to work with. The Ring of Free Action is good for avoiding CC. The Risky Ring is generally good on most builds, however, this build doesn't particularly need it as we have other ways to gain advantage, like our Oath spell, Vow of Enmity, or the Gloves of the Automaton. However, you still can use it if you want. And Killer's Sweetheart gives us a guaranteed crit, which when combined with our high level Divine Smites, can instantly gimp an enemy with just one attack. And finally, for Act 2, the Amulet of the Harpers is always a good defensive option. And finally, for Act 3, in terms of melee weapons, the Silver Sword of the Astral Plane is the best option for Githyanki characters. Otherwise, the Sword of Chaos for lifesteal, or Balduran's Giant Slayer for its high damage and enlarge spell. For our ranged weapons, the Dead Shot gives us increased crit, or Gaunter Mail gives us a haste spell with no downsides to its cast. For our many helms, the Helmet of Grit gives us more bonus actions. The Hood of the Weave is for spellcasters, although realistically the Helm of Arcane Acuity is probably better than this. The Horns of the Berserker give added damage. The Mask of Soul Perception gives initiative and attack roll bonuses. And Cerebok's Horned Helm gives us more increased crit. For chestplates, the Armor of Persistent gives us great passive effects in Blade Warden Resistance. Alternatively, the Helldusk Armor gives us good flat damage reduction and flight. The Cloak of Displacement is good for avoiding damage. The Legacy of the Masters gives us attack roll bonuses. The Gauntlets of Hill Giant Strength, which can allow you to redistribute your ability scores. Or the Helldust Gloves, which give us added damage. For boots, the Boots of Persistence are the best for the added maneuverability. Or, if you want to use these on a different character, Blackguard Greaves can substitute. The Helldusk Boots are also not bad. For rings, the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel lets us use Hold Person in command as a bonus action, allowing us to get guaranteed crits off or CC enemies. And finally, for amulets, the Amulet of the Devout can be good if you're going a more cleric-focused build. The Amulet of Greater Health can let us invest our ability points in Constitution elsewhere. And the Face Amulet's Amulet is never a bad choice for any build. And that's all for the items. And that's everything for the build. Thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video and want more content like this. And before I sign off for this vid, since some people were concerned, don't you worry, Quincy is doing just fine. See? See guys, he's fine. Anyways, see you guys next time. Bye.